So I'm going to talk about, obviously, the first thing that comes up. It's like, what? You work for the Olympics? How did you get that job? So I'm going to tell you how I got that job. And then I'll just talk a little bit about what I do from day to day when I'm actually working on the games. So these are kind of the success points that I've kind of identified over the last 10 years, what makes an effective and successful event management person, event manager, I guess. So obviously the first one and the biggest one is volunteering. How many people here have volunteered? Hands up? Yeah? From anything from coaching Little League to volunteering at your church, volunteering at any possible place anywhere. That is the biggest thing. So yes, education is awesome. It's great to have, but you actually get a lot of education when you volunteer. Even though I'm an event manager, I keep volunteering constantly. I'm volunteering to do this job just to see, be part of this event. I moved back from London in October, and straight away I volunteered at the Santa Claus Day Parade just to get, be a part of that event. So really, really key. Doesn't matter what event or what it is and what degree you're going for or program, they'll always look for volunteerism on your degree or on your CV. And energy. If you can't tell already, I have a lot of energy. Patty in the front row there can attest to that, yes. So you definitely have to have a lot of energy and perseverance. So, this job didn't fall into my lap. I worked many years to get it, and I keep looking towards the future and motivating myself to continue, and you need to have that motivation to get other people going. So can't stress it enough. Put your hand up, volunteer as much as possible. I started volunteering and being volunteered to work at equestrian events because that was my main area of sporting when I was younger. I would do anything from working at the canteen, serving hot dogs, to raking the arena between sessions. And then it became second nature to me because even when I wasn't competing, I would be every weekend just going out to all the competitions and helping out with my local 4-H club and stuff like that. So it made perfect sense, and it was inevitable that I would get involved in the Pan Am Games in 1999 here in Winnipeg. Does anybody here remember those games? The Pan Am Pink? Woo! So it was amazing. After that, things got really exciting for me because I ended up taking my shifts at the equestrian venue and then taking on a whack-load of other shifts all over the place. So I was over at the U of M with the Athletes Village. I was just any shift I could pick up just to have a chance to see how everything was organized. I've always had this, crazy need to be involved in everything, attention to detail, and I wanted to know how things ran. So chatting with these athletes and finding out their stories was just amazing, and I really, really wanted to get involved as much as possible. So that was in '99. And at the time, I was actually taking a degree in film studies. So it seems a little bit, kind of counterintuitive to say, well, you work in the Olympics and event world, and you did a film degree. Well, that was my first degree, and it's really interesting because being on a film shoot, so I went and worked in film for a while, and it's very similar to an event, Olympics. See you later, guys. Don't miss your bus. Thanks for coming for a couple seconds. It's organized chaos, basically. So behind the scenes on a film shoot and anything to do with any games or events, it's organized chaos. At the time when I was taking my degree at U of M in film, my cousin was actually in recreation studies. She was taking a class there. And one of her classes, she had to do a project on facilities. Of course, they still teach. And she had to do find out how a sporting facility actually was run effectively and efficiently. And I helped her with the stable that I was working at and training at. And my fascination with this degree, I'm like, what? You can actually study how a venue is put together and how everyone comes into the venue, how you can go from ground level to nothing to actually structurally sound and effective for people to come into. So I straight away, as soon as I graduated from film, I worked in film for a little bit, but that summer I went into rec studies, and the rest was history. Or Patty here? Put your hand up, Patty. Rec Studies, what? Yes. So now it's called the Recreation Management and Community Development degree. That was my little shout out. Yeah, no worries. Energy. Okay, first off, you have to like people. You do. You really, really have to like people. And you have to remember that these people here, these are some of my wonderful volunteers at Wimbledon. I went to London 2 years before the games actually started. But here, this was at their orientation. This was a chance of a lifetime for them. Most of them were British, which makes sense because it was in London. And volunteerism in Britain is not anything like it is here. I mean, it's kind of second nature for us to volunteer, but it was a huge thing for them to get involved, and it changed a lot of the ways that they do events now, which is really cool. But these people, I could have been doing my job for 2 years, which I was, and I got to orientation. You can be a little bit burnt out because it's like, I've been working on this project forever, but you have to remember that these people, this is all fresh for them. So you have to come fresh-faced every day and say, thanks for coming out, this is gonna be amazing games. Even if you've had you're at your wit's end with something, you have to continue to have that motivation to keep yourself going, and then most importantly, to keep your staff going. All right, so that's kind of the behind-the-scenes stuff that how I got where I am today, sort of. And then I'll talk about a day in the life. So some of the things I talked a little bit about 2 years before, because a lot of people say, well, I'm planning to go to Rio in a few months, after summer, when summer actually gets here. So I'll be out there 3 years before the games, because they're in 2016. And people were like, why are you going so early? The games are 3 years from now. So there's a lot of people that really like the planning sessions. And again, like I said, I crave the attention to detail. I love getting my hands dirty, getting in there from the get-go, actually doing the venue construction, just getting involved, getting to know everybody on my team and every venue. So it's, that you have to be a certain type of person. There are other people that come on the week of or the month of the Olympic and Paralympic Games that all their focus is I've done all the planning for them, and then I give them the packet kind of thing and say, okay, go ahead, run this venue. And there's a lot of people that are like, that's cool. I might actually do that when I go up to Glasgow for the Commonwealth Games. Again, it's a very close-knit family. That's another thing about these. I mean, we're all transient beings. We end up keeping in touch on Facebook, woo, Facebook, and LinkedIn, and we all just kind of get each other jobs because we've worked with people. And if you have that energy, that's what gets you rehired every time. Planning. So this is the planning stuff. So I have to think of everything possible. So when I talk about security, it's not just security at the the airport style security. My actual title is Event Services Manager, which is all spectator services. So that's even more important to have that energy because you're front facing. So if you think about all the volunteers, the lovely volunteers that are here at this event, they're all the people that are meeting and greeting you, helping you get up the stairs, down the stairs, find the toilets, all of that. So those are the people that I work with, staff, paid staff and volunteers. So those are the people that will be at the Olympic Games saying, oh, you're now approaching the security screening. Please have your tickets ready, everything out of your pockets, and please use the bins provided. Thank you. And they say it like 5,000 times in a minute. So again, there's that energy, constant. Zoning, just making sure that people stay where they're supposed to be. Athletes stay in the competition area to avoid chaos. They do come out, and the tennis players are notorious for this and causing major bottlenecks. But it was fine. I mean, I'm okay with Rafa just walking around randomly. It's, fine. And signage, huge, but no one really reads signs. How many people here saw signs today? Just the one outside the door, probably? There's a ton up. From now on, any event you go to, check out the signage, because that's a huge part of this job as well, making things make sense. So as soon as someone comes to an event, you want to make sure that they can actually get to where they're going. So as soon as someone rocks up to the venue, even before that, they need to get there, especially people coming from all over the world. It's an international event. In London, transportation was a huge worrisome thing that we're, because it's a huge city and the tube often doesn't work. But everything worked perfectly, of course. But making sure that that signage is where it's supposed to be. So I actually go on all the venue drawings and put, where exactly signs should be. And where I put those signs, I also put a person, because we all know that people don't read signs. So I'll literally have a sign and a person right beside the sign. And the sign will be, you have to make them really simple. Toilets this way, merchandise this way, concessions this way. And someone will come up and say, "Hi, can you tell me where the toilets are, please?" And of course, the event services person will be like, "Yes, no problem, it's to the left," even though the sign is right there. So I'll show you the dot plans in a minute. And then, of course, planning for everything else. What we do in the Olympic and Paralympic Committee is we sit there and think of every possible scenario. So yes, in London, we would talk about a bomb threat, because it's always, something, it's an international venue or event. So if someone wants to make a point, that's when they're going to do it. So we would sit down, have tabletop exercises and say, okay, what if there's a bomb that goes off and the Jubilee line is down? What do we do? Go. It's 9 o'clock in the morning. You have, 38 events that are starting. So we plan for the worst and expect the best. And when we talk about the best, that's when test events come into play, because we actually, like it says on the tin, we actually do test events for every venue and every sport. A lot of them are World Cups, so that's another really cool part of my job, is that I get to work at all these test events. So I'll see, like it was the Junior World Cup curling that I did for my test event in Vancouver, and I'm really ashamed to say that I don't really know anything about curling. So that's one thing with my job. I don't have to know about the sport. It helps, but you don't play curling. Just so you know, I said that to my volunteers, and I'm like, "No, I don't play curling." And they're like, "Oh, really? It's just curl." So you don't really need to know anything about the sport, but it does help. So test events, there's a lot. If you've been watching any of the television coverage in Russia, they're doing all of the test events for the Winter Games that are going to be next year. So they do them a year, sometimes 2 years out, getting to make sure that the venues are actually going to function the way that they need to. So with the venue drawings, I'm completely directionally challenged. I think I got lost like 12 times when I was in here. Probably don't read signs. It's another problem. But with the venue drawings, I would go out. So we have everything on paper, obviously, first off. Some of the venues, most of them are not even built yet. So 2 years out, you're basically looking at a big field here. So this was my venue in Vancouver. In the background, you can see there's actually a building there, and the telltale signs of construction with the snow fence. And then my colleague there standing in a big field. So we would stand there. So where he is standing right now, is going to be a concrete slab that was a holding area, so that when people could come in, from the security screening, they could filter in and come in that way. And then come into big tents. So I'm sitting there trying to figure out where north is, let alone trying to figure out where my concourse is going to be that I have to design all the queuing for and everything. So it's interesting to see it go from that to this. So that's what it ended up looking like. One of our challenges is obviously space sometimes. We actually had some good space, but we got to rent it from people. We got to pay for this and that and whatever. Some things just don't go to plan, but this is what it ended up being, which was really cool. And then the inside of that tent was one of the main concourses. So if you just take a look at the girl that's, I have this thing. Yeah, that girl right there. And she's got this beautiful armband. That's event services. She's one of my volunteers, and she's standing right by a sign that says concessions straight on or right in front, right here. And I designed this lovely queuing system. That's one of my fun jobs to do. And then merchandise is over here. This is the information desk. And right where I'm standing is where the entrance would be. So with signage and with people, they have to be strategically placed so that they can sit there and meet and greet people, say, "Welcome to the Vancouver Olympics. I hope you enjoy the show." And then help them find their seats, help them get to the concessions, to the toilets, anything you can think of. We're there to help people. Did anybody go to the Jets game last night at all? Right on. Good one, hey? I randomly got tickets like last minute. Yeah, so sorry if you didn't go, but we won, so yay. But yeah, next time if you go to a Jets game or even just a local game, just think of all the places where you might get lost. It's really easy for me because I get lost all the time. And so it works to my benefit that I do the planning. So I'm like, okay, I'm lost, I need to sign here, done. So this is kind of a typical, kind of very generic look at a venue. So this is a major part of my planning. So I need to know where people are coming in, and as soon as they come in, what are they gonna look for? Where do they need to get to? So I would, say the main concourse, it's called the front of house, so the front-facing area where the spectators are gonna be milling around and getting food and drink and using the toilet, getting merchandise, and then heading into their seating bowl or viewing area. And then, obviously, the field of play, the blue bit, is the competition area. So that is off limits for spectators, for obvious reasons, but that's where all of the athletes are gonna hang out, and the show will go on there. And then this bit back here is called the back of house. It's basically where all the operations happen. So all the ugly bits that we don't want any of the spectators to see, that's where everything is set up, where we get ready for the day and each shift, and where the athletes get prepared for their competition. So that's a generic drawing. And so this is a more specific drawing. So this is court 2 at Wimbledon. So when I was talking about dots on a dot plan, so here, dots are people. So if you look at, for example, the black dots that are my response team, so that's my security on the field of play, or on the competition or the court area. So around here, we want to make sure that there's nobody jumping onto the field of play. And they're actually, I'll show you a picture of what it actually looks like. They're facing the audience, or the spectators. They're not watching the show. They're not a bunch of, just sitting there like, hey, I get to watch tennis front row. They're there to make sure that everything is secure and everyone's safe in their seats. And then at every gangway or aisle, I've got a couple people there that are there, well, especially for tennis, you want to make sure that everyone's quiet and they're seated during the play. But they're helping them because there's a lot of gangways in here. I think there was, 16 or something. So they want to make sure they get to the right place because you want to be efficient and effective. A lot of my job is queue management. So you must have, when you're coming upstairs, there's always queues, those bottleneck places. I have to identify those as well. So you want to make sure that people are going to the right gang or the right aisle, otherwise you have craziness. And then obviously around here there's the circulation people, the ones that'll be answering any questions as people come up to the venue. Or the seating bowl area. And then I have to figure out who needs a radio and why, because you don't want to have every single person. I had 660 staff every day, every shift, and not everyone can be on the radio. There's some people you do not want to have on the radio, just because they'll chatter, and you need to be able to get through when you need to if there's any emergency or change of plans. All those little green question marks. Games time. So that was the planning session. Yeah, you guys are coming in for the fun bits. Games time. All right, so, everything else was fun up until now, obviously, too. But this is me with, ridiculously blonde hair at Wimbledon. This is center court, and this is me briefing everyone, a very brief briefing, because you can't really reach everyone with a megaphone, even me with my voice. But every morning I would get everyone together in center court. There was 660 of us, and just say good morning and welcome. You guys are doing it. This is day 2, this is day 3, this is day 18 or whatever. So again, keeping that motivation up, welcoming people back and saying thank you for coming back. We were really lucky. We had amazing weather, but again, think of how things could easily change. And if you've got crappy weather, you've got people that are not happy, both spectators and your staff. So again, that's the energy bit. That's like, you have to be the Energizer Bunny. So from that, remember when I said you have to like people? This is a contingency plan. So you end up getting together here. This is a smaller briefing. It was actually raining that morning, so I had to bring everyone into a very small room and brief them. So it was quite cozy. But you do what you have to, and it worked out, so that's good. But yeah, you really need to like people and like coffee. All right, so I showed you that dot plan. This is the dot plan in play. This is actually center court again. So this is obviously when it's a full house. The guys here, remember I was talking about the black dots? So they're on the field of play, or the court, and they're looking at the seating bowl. So they're all around here. And they're ensuring that everyone's in their seats, nobody's having any medical issues, nobody's running onto the field. That is, they always tell us that you're probably going to have a streaker. They thought for sure I was going to have one in Vancouver for the curling, because there's a rubber chicken guy. Use your imagination where he puts the rubber chicken. But I've never had any streakers, so that's cool. But those are what those people are doing. And then in every of the gangways or the aisles, I have people that are standing there and making sure that everyone sits in their seats and remains quiet during the competition. And then most of my guys on the field of play, and a lot of them in the aisles, will have radios so that they can contact anyone if something were to arise. A lot of things like delay of game, or if that roof right here has to go up. That's why we would have radios. And I always carry like 2 or 3. It's really fun. This is Eaton Manor. This is where the Paralympic curling was, the wheelchair curling. So just another example of kind of a full house, and obviously some quite high stands. So this is another place where my staff would be in the seating bowl, helping people, making sure they got to their seats and they were able to come down. So again, you really need to like people, especially your spectators. And this was a brand new building. It was really cool. Some action shots showing lots of energy. This is my mate Scott. He has worked 3 Olympic Games with me as well, and he actually worked for the Olympic Broadcast Service, the OBS, for years. And then he moved into event services, wanted to be not behind the camera anymore, but actually working with spectators and with people. So that's him directing people to the ever so popular screening areas. Another briefing with my Vancouver team, early morning. Some of them had coffee, some of them not so much. This is an information booth. Love to see the smiles, good times, because you get random questions all the time. And this is one of my offices down in the dungeon of Wimbledon. It's like the oldest building ever. Just kind of getting everything ready. So this is why this is not front facing. We all look a little bit disheveled there, and getting all the paperwork ready for all the briefings that day. So that's behind the scene, and this is front facing. So you can see the change in energy. All right, so best thing to do is get involved. This is me at the Bird's Nest in China during the Beijing Games. Highlight, for sure, I led the St. Patrick's Day Parade in Dublin, Ireland in 2006. I was on my vacation, just taking some time off between gigs, and I was like, you know what? I want to volunteer in Ireland at the St. Patrick's Day Festival. Why not? Get some exposure that way. So I decided to just sign up. I went online. I said I'm going to plan to be in London, in Dublin. Like, where am I? At that time. And so I just clicked the "We're looking for volunteer" button. Lo and behold, someone got back to me within a couple of days, and I ended up traveling out there and doing that. And it just so happens to be my birthday on St. Patrick's Day. So they put me at front and center. So there's this random Canadian with her red mittens and everything I took backpacking with me on, because it was sleeting and freezing, kind of like here. And I was front and center, waving my mittens and saying, hey, I'm in the St. Patrick's Day Parade. So that was fun. This is me holding one of the torches from the Vancouver Games. And then more recently at the London Games with my lovely uniform, purple and poppy. Much preferred these uniforms in Vancouver. They called us avatars and Smurfs, but it's all good because they were very cute. So this is kind of at the end of the day, one of the end of the shifts, so I do a debrief at the end, and you can see I may have run out of energy because I'm on the ground. But I'm still smiling, so yay, ready for the next day. Future opportunities, they abound. So I chose to come back here for the summer, again, whenever it starts, instead of taking a job at the Commonwealth Games in Glasgow. But it was on the books that I was going to get, I had a job there. I decided to come home. I'm going out to see what I can see at the Pan Am Games in Toronto, because I have a bunch of friends that work there, so I might just drop in and do just the games time bit. And I'm definitely heading to Rio. And this is my good friend, Carol. Got to know her quite well, and she is the person that's hiring for my position in Brazil. So I'm learning Portuguese right now, and she was very impressed with our venue, because Wimbledon, how can you not be impressed? It's quite amazing. And so networking is huge, a great thing to do. Volunteering, this all goes onto your CV, and they look at all of that. That's definitely what the Olympic Committee is looking for, and any major event is looking for that.